Sometimes bad things happen to good people. And personally, we don't feel that a medical emergency, a car breakdown, a loss of employment, or any other slip up should cause anyone years of undue hardship and unavoidable stress. So in this video, we're going to show you how to legally remove any negative remarks that are being incorrectly reported on your credit file and how to deal with the collection agencies. So let's discuss what your Fair Credit Reporting Act and Fair Debt Collection Practices Act rights are and how to leverage those to your advantage. So even if you think you owe the debt, it must be listed as 100% accurate on your credit reports. It is your legal right to challenge all negative items on your credit file. Now, I'm sure you've heard that after 7 years, negative items will simply fall off. However, that debt can be sold to another collection agency with a different opening date and continue to report over and over again. Now, that's just one of several legal scenarios and practices that collection companies will use to keep your credit score low. Now, take control of the situation and exercise your legal rights. The Fair Credit Reporting Act is a federal law that was enacted in 1970 that regulates the credit reporting agencies and enforces the use of factually accurate and timely reporting of accounts on your credit file. You may or may not be surprised to learn that nearly 79% of Americans have an error on their credit report, with 1 in 20 having a serious error. Now, we've even come across several clients as being listed as deceased on their credit file. You can only imagine how difficult it is to get credit at that point. A significant portion of this course is dedicated to giving you the tools to combat inaccurate and unverifiable negative information on your credit reports. Let's go ahead and strap in and learn about what to specifically look for on your credit reports and how to use the letter templates you've been given to combat and challenge these inaccurate accounts. Now, this portion of the class will be most beneficial if you have your updated full reports from all 3 credit bureaus printed and in front of you. If you don't already have your full 3 credit bureau reports, please pause the video, click on the link we provided in the links section to get the best reports possible. Now that we have our credit reports in front of us, let's start with the personal information portion of the reports to look for inaccuracies. So, is your name spelled correctly? Is there any other name listed on your credit report? Even if you legally changed your name, that is now the only name that should be listed on your reports. Do not be surprised to see a relative's or even a roommate's name on your credit report. It's a frequent error, but it's one that needs to be corrected. Next, let's make sure your birthday is correct. And finally, your address. Now, believe it or not, the majority of the time when you request an investigation, the credit reporting agencies will use just your address to verify the accounts you're questioning. Let's say you had cable service at an old address, and that company is alleging you didn't return the equipment. Well, if we go ahead and remove that old address, it makes verifying that debt far more difficult. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at the first letter template we've given you. It's a very simple letter requesting the removal of any out-of-date personal identifiers from your old report. Just put your personal information in the places marked, and there's no need to sign any of the letters that you're sending to the credit bureaus, by the way. However, with every letter, you must send a copy of your government-issued ID. Now, it doesn't have to have the correct address on the ID. And a recent utility bill, bank statement, pay stub, or a post office change of address form. That shows your correct address to the bureaus to prove you are who you say you are before they'll actually begin their investigation. Next, let's dig into your accounts listed on the reports. So as you can see, this is easiest with the credit monitoring we've recommended because you'll be able to see how each credit bureau is reporting your accounts side by side and pinpointing any inaccuracies quickly. As you look at your first account listed, you should see a partial account number. If for any reason you have multiple, 2 or more collection accounts listed with the same name, account number, same or very similar opening dates, and similar balances due, there's a good chance you have a duplicate account listed. This is a violation of the Fair Credit Reporting Act and must be removed. So go ahead and let's circle any duplicate accounts. Now, there is one big exception to the rule here, and that would be with student loans. What often happens with student loans is a person's initial loan will be split up and listed per semester of classes into smaller amounts, but with the same account numbers. So this is not a violation. We will go into depth about student loans that are reporting negatively a little bit later, but you are going to want to attack those in a very different way than any other negative or collection accounts. So bear with me for a bit and we'll circle back to those. So, after looking for any duplicate accounts, let's focus on each individual closed collection or charge-off account and search for inaccuracies. Please do not dispute open accounts that are in poor standing. We will discuss how to handle poor performing open accounts a little later. So when you're looking at your closed accounts, is the date open correct? Now, when a collection or charge-off account is now owned by a collection agency, the open date listed for that account should be within 6 to 9 months of the last payment received by the original creditor. So, for instance, if you went to the emergency room in 2014 and didn't pay the bill, and yet the collection company that owns the debt has an opening date of 2019, then that would be a violation and can certainly be removed. Now, on average, for the tens of thousands of accounts we have reviewed, I would say nearly 50% of them have an inaccurate opening date. Okay, so now is the balance or past due amount the same across all three bureaus? Is the date of last payment the same? Do you even remember the account? Do you really owe this collection company reporting negatively on your file, or did you have a contract with another company? Now, for medical debts and collections, did you have insurance and maybe it was slow to pay, or perhaps you had coverage through Medicaid? More often than not, medical collections are going to be the most inaccurate and difficult to verify. Now I'm going to throw up a couple of screen grabs so you can see what I'm talking about when it comes to inaccuracies. In the first one, this individual had an account that, as you can see, is carrying a wildly different balance. Also, take a look at the date of last payment. They're a year and 7 months apart. There is no way this account is reported correctly. Now let's take a look at the second screen grab. So in this one, and this is from the same report, do you notice how that balance is the same as what's reporting on the other account from before? Now there's a good chance it's a duplicate account. And we want to make sure we point this out in our second round letter after the initial investigation. Finally, take a look at how the payments are being reported on the bottom of the screen. Once again, inaccuracies all over the place. Do you see how easy it is to read these reports? These screen grabs are from Identity IQ, by the way. Identity Club has very similar looking reports, but of course with a few additional perks. Now, to be very blunt, it is within your rights to challenge and ask for an investigation of any and every negative account, collection, charge-off, repossession, foreclosure, or bankruptcy on your credit report. Please understand, though, that as you're removing inaccurate and unverified information from your credit reports, you're doing only that. And what I mean is that only the negative information on the credit report is going away and not the actual debt. The advantage here is that it'll be far more difficult for a creditor to collect on unverifiable debt in the future, and of course the benefits that go along with having a higher credit score. Now, on the other hand, if you have a collection account that appears to be accurate and you know that it's yours, it may be wise to offer a settlement on that account in exchange for a deletion from your credit reports. Now, typically a collection company will agree to settle that account in full for 30 to 50% of the charged off balance. Just make sure to get the agreement for deletion after payment in writing. The mailing address for each creditor and collection company can be found on the last few pages of your credit report. I would also include a self-addressed and stamped envelope when communicating with these companies, as you're far more likely to get favorable and quicker response that way. So let's move on to putting together our very first investigation letter. Now we're going to send this letter 14 days after our personal identifiers letter went out. In this letter, our goal is to use very little legal jargon and keep it more basic. You see, we have to give the credit bureaus an opportunity to correct any inaccurate information they might be reporting on you before we go into full attack mode. We are simply asking the credit bureaus to investigate the accounts you have indicated and to make sure that they are 100% accurate. So with this letter, we want to put the burden of proof on the credit bureaus. We're simply asking for an investigation and not actually pointing out any of the inaccuracies just yet. The credit bureaus legally have between 30 and 45 days to complete their investigation. Now, if possible, send this round of letters via certified mail. If you're not familiar with certified mail, this is what it looks like. You can pick this up at any post office, okay? Now, you might ask yourself, why don't I just dispute the accounts online or go through a free credit reporting app? Frequently, when you're using a third-party software dispute or even using the credit bureau's own portal to dispute online, there are several terms and agreements that you will be agreeing with without even knowing it. Now, frequently they include agreeing to not dispute again if your account has been verified as accurate, so you could really be shooting yourself in the foot if you need to take any further action. So now the reason we want to send this round of letters and any investigation letters by certified mail is to create a paper trail. We don't want to give the credit bureaus any wiggle room saying, we didn't receive your disputes. If there's ever a time when you need to reach out to an attorney because the credit bureaus have refused to investigate your claims. Now, don't worry, this is something we'll go into depth on in a couple of videos. Remember to include a copy of your ID and your pay stub, utility bill, bank statement, etc. with your current address on it with every letter you send to the credit bureaus. Now would be a good time to set up an account for informed delivery with the United States Postal Service. So this is a completely free service, and it's available to about 90% of the addresses in the U.S. Informed delivery will send an image of all your incoming mail to an email address of your choice. Now remember, folks, we want to build a paper trail and strengthen our position as much as possible. So now we play the waiting game until the bureaus have completed their investigations and mailed the results from those back to you. Now during this time, you should be focusing on your accounts that are currently open or that you're still making payments on. If you are behind on any payments, catch them up as soon as possible. It may be even in your best interest to go ahead and set up as many accounts as you can on autopay to avoid any future late payments. Also, remember the balances on those revolving credit accounts, your credit cards? Those account for 30% of your score, so focus on paying these accounts down and not adding any additional debt. If you don't have any open accounts, please reference video 3 to get those started and maximize your score. There's a good possibility that as you're improving your credit and challenging negative items, that you will receive a notice from a collection company stating that you have 30 days to respond to their letter on whether or not you challenge the validity of the debt they have listed. So what they're really hoping is you don't even open this piece of mail, because if you don't respond in 30 days, they can now legally add this negative account to your credit file. Always respond to these in writing and by certified mail as soon as you receive them. So we have provided you with a template specifically for this situation. It's called the Dunning Letter, and we're asking for very specific information. Our goal is to see if the collection agency actually responds and meets all the criteria to legally put this account on your credit report. Now, the majority of the time they lack the necessary information, will stop attempting to collect and try to sell the debt to another collection company. As long as you stay vigilant on the mailbox and continue to follow this process, you will be successful. Now, however, there are other aggressive debt collectors out there that will use illegal tactics to harass you into paying inaccurate and unverifiable debts. When those debt collectors call, inform them that you want all further communication by mail only. Let them know that they are not to call you again, any of your relatives or your place of business. Then simply say goodbye and hang up. Never give out any or confirm your social security number, date of birth, or address, because if it is a legitimate collection, the company will already have the correct information. Now, chances are they will call again, and it's very important that you keep a log of every time they call you, even if you don't answer. Please save any voicemails they leave you as well. At this point, you will need to send a cease and desist letter that we provided by a certified mail to the collection company. If you need to find their address, simply Google the phone number they're calling you from, and the business should pop up. Now, if that doesn't stop the harassment, we will discuss the steps to take in the legal representation video.